Hello everybody. We have another video entitled, Is a Commission on Judicial Performance an Unbiased, Impartial Gatekeeper of Justice or A Protection Racket? I like to say, all praises be to Allah, the Lord of worlds, creator of the universe. Also like to say, I love my mother, I love my father, I love our son, and I have love for the mother of our son. Table of contents. Introduction. Brief overview of reviews. Breach of public trust, lack of accountability, California State Auditor, Gatekeepers or Protection Racket, brief analysis of data and interpretation, conclusion, special thanks and references. The introduction. The California Commission on Judicial Performance is responsible for investigating complaints of judicial misconduct, judicial incapacity, and discipline in state judges, and is composed of 11 members, each appointed 4-year terms. 3 judges appointed by the California Supreme Court, 4 members appointed by the governor, 2 attorneys and 2 non-attorney public members, 2 public members appointed by the Assembly Speaker, and 2 public members appointed by the Senate Rules Committee. The Commission on Judicial Performance was established by a legislative constitutional amendment approved by the voters in November 1960. The Commission's authority is set forth in Article 6, Sections 8, 18, 18.1, and 18.5 of the California Constitution. In 1966, 1976, 1988, 1994, 1998, and most recently in 2002, the Constitution was amended to change various aspects of the Commission's work. Since its inception in 1960, the Commission on Judicial Performance, known as CJP, has been the single agency responsible for investigating complaints of judicial misconduct. CJP's mission is to protect the public, enforce rigorous standards of judicial conduct, and maintain public confidence in the integrity and independence of the judicial system. So, brief overview of reviews. These were some reviews from Yelp of people that made comments about the judicial performance. One person stated, "This commission protects corrupt judges in California. Recently, they were audited by the state. The audit found that this commission allows judicial misconduct to persist. To see the audit, Google Audit Report 2016-137. Moreover, the California Supreme Court does nothing about judicial corruption and misconduct. Why? Because the California Supreme Court is friends with many of these same corrupt judges and members of this commission. For example, Judge Harold Kahn and Judge Ethan Schulman of the San Francisco Superior Court are corrupt judges because they all have conflicts and take cases to help their friends and acquaintances. However, the commission, the California Supreme Court, the First District Appellate Court, and the San Francisco Superior Court are all headquartered in San Francisco right next to each other. Do you really think they're going to discipline their corrupt friends? Thought I would take a break from this madness. My next move is to try to get this judge impeached. He won his re-election bid because there was no opponent. It appears that there is some code red or something equivalent has to be ordered to discipline California judges. Only my PTSD has kept me thrusting at windmills this long. Okay, so that's just a few comments from Yelp. Go to the next slide. I've been trying to have CJP take some type of action regarding how a simple legal separation was handled from ex parte 118/2007 through default hearings 6209 and 211/2010. Wife and husband had comparable incomes, no minor children involved, and wife had separated from the marriage 12/16/2005 with minimum contact with husband until her return 1/2/2007. Pleadings and declarations are missing from the current record. Ex parte hearings and orders issued without husband being present. In one instance, a judge actually called wife at home, told her to come to court, and took off calendars husband's pleading, which included spousal support and real property. Another time, the initial judge was reassigned 10/14/2008, and another judge was assigned. Although the new judge heard the case, the orders and minutes were written in the handwriting of the reassigned judge. Unbelievable. This commission is a joke. It was reported in 2015 they dismissed 90% of people's complaints against judges. They are just there for public relations to make it seem like judges have some accountability. So these are just complaints from the Yelp that you could look up. They take no action even when there's proof of an illegal decision rulings in Stanislaus County. They defer to the local superior court's decision, like this corrupt county would ever take action against one of their own. Like other reviewers have stated, it's a joke and a PR stunt to make one falsely believe that there is an oversight committee on judicial prudence. This so-called commission is just a smokescreen to appease citizens wronged by inept and or corrupt judges. Complaints filed with them may as well be filed in the sewer because the commission won't do anything about your complaint. And as added salt to the wound, I'll take them 9 to 6 months to tell you they aren't going to do anything, and that's only if you badger them for a response. They prefer to just never get back with you. If you have a complaint regarding a judge, yes, save your energy and postage. Don't even bother complaining to the commission. Instead, file a lawsuit against a judge, and yes, it can be done. Just Google the procedure. Breach of public trust, lack of accountability, California State Auditor. So there's been public distrust about this independent agency, and just from the comments that people have stated that they feel that this agency is protecting the judge's behavior and putting a curtain over what they're doing regarding their misconduct. There's a lack of accountability. So you see that this agency, Commission on Judicial Performance, is not held responsible for their actions, and nor are they holding responsible the misconduct of the judges where they're authorized in the California Constitution to do so. So this is a lack of accountability that has caused the public distrust, and also to further looking into their records and their data from the people making complaints to the California State Auditor. So there's been a mass rejection of public complaints, and this has made it to where there's no lack of accountability. There's the distrust, and the auditor, Elaine Howe, has done some kind of audit against them back in 2019 or so to look into these complaints, and it led into some lawsuits where I believe they came to some agreement. And there's also the auditor audited them, so you could find that online. There's also a lack of transparency. So The Commission on Judicial Performance, CJP, does some public disciplinary things, but also does some private ones. Plausible deniability, basically meaning that hear no evil, see no evil, and from the bottom to the top of the corporation or agency where they feel, or for whatever reason, they're denying the misconduct that the public has undergone dealing with some of the so-called corrupt judges. Bear in mind, there are some people that get fair dealings or fair rulings or whatever it is they're doing, but for it to reach this level of lawsuits and the state auditor to get involved has shown that there's a lot of public distrust and lack of accountability, lack of transparency. Next slide. So, gatekeepers or protection racket. The CJP gatekeepers or protection racket. So, gatekeeper, authorized person with access, control to decision maker or specific information. Black's Law's Dictionary, Free Online Legal Dictionary, 2nd edition. Protection racket. A protection racket is a type of racket and scheme of organized crime perpetrated by a potentially hazardous organized crime group that generally guarantees protection outside the sanction of the law to another entity or individual from violence, robbery, ransacking, arson, vandalism, and other such threats in exchange for payments. Kleptocracy, from Greek, kleptes, thief, I steal, is a government those whose corrupt leaders, kleptocrats, use political power to appropriate the wealth of the people and land they govern, typically by embezzling or misappropriating government funds at the expense of the wider population. So, is the CHP gatekeepers? So they are gatekeepers in a sense to look into the judge's misconduct and to, by the authority of the California Constitution, to apply certain measures or procedures to that. So people, they make complaints, or the public makes complaints about these judges, and yes, they do have the power or authority to do something about it. Whether they doing all that they're supposed to, there's a distrust with the public. So obviously they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Are they a protection racket? I would say there's elements of a protection racket because you have the state of California funding this agency, and they're probably also receiving federal funding. We'd have to look at their books to see, but they have been funded to do what they're supposed to do under the California Constitution. And according to the people, their complaints, they're not doing so. And you could say, to get the benefit of the doubt, okay, well, these people might be angry litigants, or they might be mad at the outcome, or they just might be upset. People, we get angry, people are emotional, but not all the people could just feel that way. It's a lot of people saying that, so you can't just say these people are just angry. And if they're saying that these judges are committing crimes and doing things wrong, that goes against their immunity, them acting outside of the Constitution. Yes, they could make rulings and they're protected from that, but if they're doing things that are illegal, there's no protection from that, doing stuff that are crimes and felonies. So that's the presumption of immunity that they have immunity, but not from doing criminal acts or some of the things that the people have complained about online and also on their Google reviews for the CJP. Are they a kleptocracy? So if the government has corrupt leaders, okay, well, there's some reason that they're protecting their own. And this is known, but it's stated the California Constitution gives them authority, and there's an issue with these people wanting to discipline the judges that are display misconduct. There's also an issue that if they're being funded by the federal government and the state, they're misappropriating those funds if they're not doing what their mission statement says or what is in their bylaws and their articles of incorporation. And typically, just them using that money for wrong purposes becomes fraud. Let's go to the next slide. So, a brief analysis of data interpretation. So, we'll flip over to some of the data things they have from their data, the CJP. Just wanted to say complaint dissolution, the decision or resolution that concludes the complaint process. So let's look at their data. So this is from 2021, active and former judges, 2021 statistics, 2021 complaint dispositions. So they received 1,196 complaint dispositions. Closed after initial review, 1,112. Disposition following staff inquiry or preliminary investigation, 84. Let me see. So they're dismissing or closing these cases about 90% of the complaints they're receiving. So there's something not right with this data where these people that have been authorized by the California Constitution are closing out 90% of the initial review. And then they're looking into 84 for preliminary investigation. So disposition following staff inquiry or preliminary investigation. Closed without discipline, 62. Discipline issued, 19. And closed following judge resignation or retirement, 3. Disciplines issued, 11 advisory letters, 4 private admonishments, and 4 public disciplines. Public discipline, 3 public admonishment, public censure, 0, and 1 removal from office. We're just gonna go through this a little bit. Some of the types of misconduct, type of conduct resulting in discipline in 2021, demeanor, decorum, bias or appearance of bias not directed toward a particular class, includes embroilment, prejudgment, favoritism, off-bench abuse of office, misuse of court information, bias or appearance of bias towards a particular case, administrative malfeasance, includes conflicts between judges, failure to supervise staff, delay in responding to complaints about commissioners, disqualification, disclosure, post-disqualification conduct, ex parte communication, miscellaneous off-bench conduct, failure to ensure rights, improper business, financial, fiduciary activities, improper political activities, on-bench abuse of authority and performance of judicial duties, sexual harassment, inappropriate workplace gender comments. So we have active and former judges 2021 statistics, 10-year summary of commission activity. So these are the complaints they received from 2012 to 2021. So you have for 2012, 1,143. You have 2021, 1,253. So these are all in the similar ranges. If you wanted to get the average, you would add all these up, these numbers, and divide them by 10, and that will be the average. Okay, we have commission investigations commenced. So any of these data sets that they provided, you could just pause it on the video to look it over and then unpause it. So you have staff inquiries, investigations commenced. So you see that the formal proceedings instituted is very low. Also, preliminary investigations. So you have disposition of commission cases from 2012 to 2021. So this is a 10-year data table, and you see that the numbers are kind of similar. If you wanted to get the average, you add them up together and divide it by 10 to get the yearly average. So you have all, after they looked at the cases, there was a big amount closed. So you have 87%, 90, 89, 90, 88, 89, 93, 91, 93 for 2021. Then you have a fluctuating to close without discipline after investigation. Then you have some of the admonishments. But if you look at the data, with the cases being closed, 90%, 89, 90, 89, this looks like doesn't look so good. That they're all similarly the same kind of ratio of close after initial review. Then you have on the bottom, judge retired or reassigned and proceedings pending. Those are very low numbers. So you could look at this data that for the amounts of the cases that were closed and then the ones that they decided to look into, there's still very low discipline for misconduct. So I'll go back to slides. So what does the data mean? So when you look at the initial complaints, it's pretty high, but then they only take about 9% to look into. So what does that mean? That means that over the 10 years, the CJP is only allowing 10% or less than that they have to look into. And what does that mean is that they're taking all those complaints and throwing them all out and then picking and choosing the ones that they want to look into. This means this data is very skewed, and it also shows bias on behalf of the CJP. In a general sense, you would have to look at every single case to understand why the staff of the CJP is closing these cases without it making through the preliminary investigation level. This means a lot of things because if you looked at each case individually, you might discover that those cases or complaints should have went to the preliminary level to be looked at. It also shows that there's a bias that the CJP is throwing out a lot of people's complaints and also stating that they're mostly all mad litigants. There's no way that 90% of those people could just all be angry. It's just indicative that the Commission on Judicial Performance are gatekeepers, but they don't want this stuff to get out to the public. They don't want to do investigations. And this is the state funding these people, state of California funding the CJP to do this overview or analyzing the judicial misconduct. There's public mistrust. The auditor had to sue them, and then they sued the auditor back, and they worked something out, and she wrote some analysis of what had happened, which you could look online. But this is just shows from the data that this is almost bearing of a protection racket where you have this agency, the CJP, only letting in 9 or 10% of the complaints. Like this is admissions to graduate school where they only let 5% in their school. This creates the public mistrust because it appears that the Commission on Judicial Performance has a poor performance in doing what they're supposed to do. And we don't tell the public officials what to do. We remind them. But obviously from the data looks controlled. So why is the data consistent? The data has been consistent over the 10 years because they want it to be that way. The state is funding the Commission on Judicial Performance to be an independent group or independent agency or corporation that does disciplinary action to judges that are corrupt or display judicial misconduct. But the reason is that they are taking only in 10%, and some of these things are rabbit holes. They don't want to look into some of this data, or look not necessarily the data, but look into the misconduct, because it would just lead to other things. And if the judges are doing this to a whole bunch of people and treating people unfair, or they have some kind of criminal misconduct, some of those cases might have to be overturned. So if they're doing bribes and doing certain things that judges aren't supposed to do according to the canon law, or the canon laws, the laws of the judges, a lot of this stuff might be overturned. So they might have immunity to their decisions, but if they're committing fraud and doing all these things, then some of that would have to be looked in and overturned. So the data is consistent because it's private and they want to keep it to a minimum, because if the stuff really came out to what was going on, the numbers of preliminary would be higher. And they don't want to taint the judicial system in a sense to where the public feels a certain way, but they don't want that to just be mainstream. because it'll look like they're incompetent. So these are some of the reasons why they keep that data the same way. So you have to think of it as you have scientists doing an experiment, and they're supposed to be they're supposed to have integrity and morals, but they're making up their own data. They're just doing whatever they want, and then they publish the data with the findings that they made up. So you think of that with the Commission on Judicial Performance, that they're protecting the judges in their misconduct. So they are changing and controlling the variables to their favor. Fair or rigged. It has the appearance of being fair, but as stated, when you research and you read the articles and understand, it would be more of being rigged. You have an experiment, you're controlling the variables. You have a race with two cars, you're doing whatever you want. You're putting the high performance in the car. You're doing things that are contrary to the rules of racing. So, for example, it's a fiduciary duty for the people that are in the Commission on Judicial Performance to do what they said is authorized in the California Constitution. But they're doing things contrary, and this becomes a breach of that fiduciary duty. So the public officials are public trustees to the people. And from this data, you could see that something is wrong. When you look deeper into the data, you could see that they're covering up the misconduct. Will we be able to see every case? Probably not, because some of this is confidential. The auditor couldn't even look at this. But then you have to ask yourself, did the auditor really do a serious audit? You have to remember she works for the state, so she works for the same people that she's trying to audit. Is she going to say these people are committing felonious acts? Is she saying that these people are committing treason? No, she's not going to say that, because she works for those people. And these are the conflicts of interest that the judges and the lawyers all belong to the Bar Association, and they're a nonprofit organization that gives themselves immunity. So that's another part of why this stuff is so flawed. So, fair or rigged, you could see what the people said from their comments, and a lot of the people are being screwed over. 90% of the complaints are being thrown out, so I would say rigged. It's been that way for the 10 years and probably before that if we could access that data, but we'd have to see that data. But from the data, this is what we see. Let's go to the next slide. A conclusion. Do we want change? A lot of people are upset, you know, they want to feel proud of being American and proud of their political leaders and their public trustees or public officials or public servants. So people do want change. Do most of us want to do what we should to obtain that change? Study and look into ourselves and change what we have within ourselves in order to hold so-called public servants accountable. So we will have to want to change the flaws inside of us before reporting the finger to others. As Jesus stated, he who has no sin, let them cast the first stone. I might have cremated that, but you get what I'm saying. Islam, leaders are a reflection of the people. So if you have judges and lawyers fixing and rigging cases, a commission on judicial performance being some kind of protection racket or kleptocracy to protect the misconduct of the judges, It's only a reflection of the people. So I can't say all the people are no good, but if you see this stuff going on with the CJP and the auditor and all this back and forth stuff, that's really a reflection of the people. So if you say that the public officials are rotten, stinking, rotten, the people are that way because they're only a reflection of the people. Conflicts of interest. Yes, we know there's conflicts of interest. As stated in the previous slide about the Bar Association being a so-called nonprofit organization giving itself immunity and them having some kind of monopoly on the legal system where you have all lawyers in all branches of government, judicial, legislative, and executive. Legislative is legislators, judicial are the courts, and executive branches like the Social Security Administration, the White House. So there's a lot of conflicts of interest. You could look at the data and see it's a conflict of interest because they're just making the numbers up and just controlling the number that they want to see. So it's like they're doing a jackpot or some kind of study or sample where they're only taking 10% of the complaints. Rig reality. When you think about it, a lot of the stuff is rigged. In the other video, we touched about that with the Will Smith video that, you have, the news and these courts and these sports and these entertainment outlets showing you what life is or displaying something to you that might not be real. And in the context of this video, all those complaints, most of them were thrown out and only about less than 10% were looked into. And then less than that were where the people were admonished for their misconduct. So in that sense, you could say rigged, that they're taking the numbers and picking and choosing what they wanted to go through. So this is why I put in the video protection racket or kleptocracy, the corrupt politicians doing things their own way, but giving the guise as a legitimate agency. We are not getting it. I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of us are not getting it. Just in anything you want, you have to study. Study thyself, approved unto God. Work on ourselves and then change ourselves and change the environment. Be a positive, real model of change. And we're not getting it. We're believing in the hype. And this agency has 10 years of data that's skewed and data that's biased, and the people are upset, and we're not getting it that they're running circles around us. That the people that have taken the oath to defend the Constitution against the enemies, foreign, domestic, are fooling the people. So we're not getting it. Some of us could see it. Some of us are trying to see it. But that's the whole thing, is that you start studying and making positive changes and sacrifices for yourself, you will see these things. Do they honor our voices? Yes and no. They honor our voices for positions that they want to get in by convincing the people to vote or whatever it is they got to do to get into these offices. They don't honor our voices because, as you can see from the data, they're throwing out a lot of the cases and they've done the same amount 10 years in a row. So this just shows that they're rigging that. There's no way in 10 years that the number could be the same. But this is just something that is for the people to be fooled. And then also with the auditor, if she really wanted to have the people audited, she would call on to the federal government. But it's stated, why would she do that if she's working for their corporation? You know, if these judges are committing felonies and doing egregious things, and the California, uh, the Commission on just the CJP, excuse me, is screening it, then it'll never come to surface. So they're not hearing our voices. Outcomes is stated, we have to change ourselves from within. You want change, you have to hold those accountable, meaning holding ourselves accountable. The Commission on Judicial Performance, they don't want to be accountable. The judges that are doing misconduct, they don't want to be accountable. And this is the reality, is that this is their playground. They have the plenary power in their own domain. This is whatever they do, whatever they want. But this is the situation, is that there are some issues, and I think the people are noticing that. But it's really the change that we want starts within us. Do you want to hold these people accountable? Do you want to do what's needed for everyone to be treated fairly? You know, these are things that can be achieved. But what we learned is that they don't want to look into all those complaints, and then they label all those complaints, they meaning the CJP, that those people are angry litigants. But obviously from the data, that's not the case. And these people are failing us. So it's really up to you. You know, you are the voice, you are the change. You wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, or what reflection it seems to be you, and you ask yourself, do you want the change? Do you want these people to be good, dutiful to God? Do you want to be a good person to God? Do I want to be a good person to God? Things we have to ask. These are questions. What needs change? So please like and subscribe, share. Next slide. Say all praises be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds and creator of the universe. These are some of the references. And this is concluding the video. Special thanks. Thank you very much.